right, hello everybody. My name is Will Chapman. I am Vice President of Marketing with Brock Partners, and today we are discussing a rudimentary concept, but a very important concept, and that is the shape of your business. Now, I'm not talking about what kind of shape is your business in. I'm talking about what shape is your business in the way that it is being constructed. When we start off here, right, I have all of these different shapes here, and in a minute I'm going to get into these. But as we begin, every agency, an agent begins with one shape. And it is this straight line right here. This is sales. Before any agency can be built, sales have to be made. When sales are being made, you want to make sure that the sales that you're making are creating a firm foundation of which to build your agency upon. That firm foundation will dictate everything down the line as you are continuing to build. But if you do not have sales, and if you do not have training, it will be very, very difficult to begin to scale into an actual shape of a business. When you begin, it is all about making that original sale, getting your first 25, 50, 60, 75 clients. That's really what it is all about. Once you get to that point, you start to look at it and you say, hey, I think I might want to start an agency at this point. So I've been down here on this straight line. I've been selling and I've been building my foundation. When we start moving into shapes, here's what we generally see. Always are going to start with a triangle. Now, with a triangle, it's very, very skeleton crew. You don't have a whole lot of employees if you have any at all. It is a lot of you doing absolutely everything. So let's talk about each part of this shape and how it works. Beginning with the foundation. This straight line right here translates directly into the shape of this business. So for instance, these sales that I was talking about, building this firm foundation, that is what you are building right here. Now, the first question to ask yourself as you are building an agency, and an agency would mean that you are intending on scaling in some capacity, whether that be to hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands or wherever it is that you are trying to get to at this particular juncture. If you're wanting to get there, you have to make sure that the foundation of your sales that you bring into this shape is strong. So let's talk about the foundation just a little bit. Are you building on stone or are you building on sand? What would be a stone-like foundation? Well, we're looking at T65s, so obviously those are going to be the most long-term value, but with T65 comes the opportunity to cross-sell, which we talk about an awful lot in our trainings. If you haven't seen them, check them out. There's plenty of them here on the channel. Jackson does a ton of them. So you can cross-sell to these T65s. That makes them 3 times stickier than they would have been had you just write a core Medicare policy. Referrals. Treat those people well, have those people sending you people. There's no better business than somebody that walks into your office or calls you and say, can I have some Medicare, please? It is a great feeling, and it creates a long-term client, especially if you treat them correctly. Grassroots. Are you out there in your own backyard finding the business that is there? It is the cheapest business to find, and most people already know you and like you if you are in your area. Do not neglect your backyard. There are plenty of people there to help. And are you out building relationships? Clinics, bigger doctor's offices, pharmacies, things like that. Hi, do you have somebody who you send your Medicare clients to when they need their Medicare problems untangled? No? I would love to help those people out. Leave a business card, build that relationship with them, and do your best to try to get those referrals from those networks. These are stone foundations. What is not a stone foundation? Well, basically, it equates to the concept of fast money. In the world of Medicare, there is no such thing as fast. And if you do try to scale fast, generally what you're going to find, and we'll get to it in just a second, is that you bottleneck somewhere and you're unable to recover from it. So when you're inside of this initial phase of building and standing up your agency, remember that the most important aspect of this, outside of generating revenue with sales so that your business can actually run and grow, is the foundation in which you're building this agency upon. This foundation right here is the foundation you're building on for the future of your agency. Very, very important. Can't stress this enough. So let's look at the other parts of this triangle here. Running up this side, we have our CRM, and our bookkeeping. At the very top of this triangle, I have the owner or the top producer, which is generally going to be the owner of the company. And then moving down this side over here, I have my marketing. Now, essentially what you have here is a strong foundation with a strong lean-to, but the owner up top is putting pressure on all of this in order to make it run, right? This is where you either get to the point where you have too much or not enough. And that pressure will then begin to mount. So the goal here, right, as you're building this and you're building this foundation, is to make double sure that when you are entering information into your CRM, or if you're keeping your books, that you're keeping them accurately. You don't want to have to go through at the end of the year and make these audits and do these and have these changes, because if you do that, what's going to wind up happening is you're going to suck all your time away from AEP, because at the end of the year, that's what's happening. You move into OEP, I don't have time. I move into ROI, well, there's other things that are going on during the rest of the year. I just didn't get to it. Before you know it, we're back to recertifications in July and then back to AEP again. And you have a lot of work to do in your book, and it hasn't been done just because the books were not kept well. Next is your marketing. When you are in this stage, generally what you're going to run into is you have limited money supply, and I put rule here beside this because this is the rule, not the exception. If you have capital, or you have a benefactor, or if you sold a business and you're moving into this space, then you got some money. But the growth curve really doesn't change all that much. You can speed it up a little bit, but these are going to be the general rules in order to build an agency and build it strong. Next, your experience is limited. Your reps are low. You don't really understand the concept of contracting. You don't really understand the concept of overrides. All of this stuff is new to you. All you know is I'm trying to sell Medicare plans, and that's it. So with this low experience barrier right here, it's really hard to know what marketing you want to run, what marketing works. You have no real proof of concept. That is why it is so important to have a strong foundation and to not overextend yourself. Because if you are building your marketing upon these stone foundations here, you won't need as much money in order to get that business to come in. All right? Now, what is sand? Sand is what people would consider to be the low-hanging fruit. Now, there are going to be people. I'm not saying do not help people who need dual special needs plans. They absolutely do. But if that is your primary marketing play, is to find people who need dual special needs plans, the odds of that staying on your book, relatively low. And then in this particular phase, it can be catastrophic, because if you wrote a decent amount of them, they fell off and they didn't stay on, then you have chargebacks. Well, what if I've spent that money in marketing already? Or what if that money's already gone? Well, the chargeback still remains. You don't want to put yourself in an unnecessary financial strain right here. The key right here is to stay in, the intensity has to stay very high, and the production has to stay very high. And when I say very high, I'm talking between 1 and 3 apps per day. We're talking about averages of 8 to 15 a week. Really trying to get to that 15 mark. That's really what you want to start building on. If you're doing that, you will see that return start to come in on the residual side. This will keep all of this pressure that you have as far as your lack of money, your lack of experience. That'll keep all of that at bay as much as possible. Now, you're running a business, so there's always going to be stress, there's always going to be pressure points, but you can handle those things if you're focused on the most important thing, and that's bringing good, solid business onto your book. Now, I have this belief lid stress right here because it's very important to note when I'm ready to move out of this just producing phase into I want to start an agency. Do I believe I can start an agency? We talk a lot about belief lids in this building because we want our employees here in this building to understand that your belief lid is what is capping you. If you can believe it, if you can see it, if you can visualize it, there's a very, very good chance you can do it. It might take some time, but it will come to fruition if you continue to do it. So what you're doing here is you're essentially stressing your belief lid. Well, I believe that I can start an agency. I'm doing okay now. I would like to start scaling a little bit. Now that belief lid is going to start to get stressed because you will then, where you were making, let's just say, 80 grand a year and feeling okay about it, now all of a sudden I have to start investing into new hires, into different marketing, into new infrastructure, into new overhead, into a building, whatever the case may be. Your money is about to drop, and you have to be okay with that. That's what creates the stress right here. So are you ready to make that move? You don't have to move super fast. However, you don't want to remain in this lean-to stage for very long because you don't want to put that much pressure on the top on yourself. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you'll work yourself into service. You want to be careful about that. So, next, whenever you're done here and you're ready to start really moving into scaling, this is generally the shape that we see. This is an hourglass where you can see plenty of possibility on the top, right? The leads that I can bring in, what I can do, and plenty of possibility down here on the bottom. Even if this possibility is strong, stone foundation business that you're writing, if you start scaling your marketing and you're unable to keep up with that marketing, this is what happens. The leads will come in, can generate the lead. The problem is there's only one of you. So you're spending your time trying to make all of these phone calls, trying to follow up with all of these people. You are now stressed to the max at that point. This is the point where problem solving on your side really becomes important. You have to look at the business and you have to say, what does the business need? This is important because the business, even though it is a living, breathing organism that changes on a daily basis, it's still an inanimate object. So the thing about the business is it doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care about your emotions. The business will dictate to you what it needs. Now, dictate means control. Nobody likes to be controlled, but the business itself will demand what it needs. So when the business starts screaming at you, it is very important to listen to it. Not to ignore it. It will not go away. It will only exacerbate the situation. Listen to the business when it's talking to you. This is the easiest way to solve this problem right here. So a couple of the common issues that we see. I got leads coming in. I got these leads that are coming in are just escaping out through the top of my funnel right here before they even hit this log jam, but the log jam only allows so much to come through. I want to expand this out. Well, what are the biggest issues that I'm running into? Number one, you hired too early, or you hired agents too early. You don't have enough lead flow to feed the agents that you have. So you hired an LOA, you're paying them a salary, and now you're bleeding money because you didn't have the marketing and lead flow to be able to feed that person. Well, that's a situation where either you're going to have a difficult conversation with an agent, or you got to figure out a way to ramp up the lead flow and lead up and the marketing, right? And that also comes to if I hired, did I train them? Did I teach them actually how to sell? Did I teach them actually how to close? Your responsibility goes up tenfold when you get into this hourglass phase. That's what a lot of stress creates. And this is where we see a lot of people leave the industry, to be perfectly honest with you, because the stress is too strong, the money is going out, I'm not exactly sure what to do. The key to this is staying calm and asking the right questions and finding partners who have the solutions for those questions. So, if I have leads that are escaping here, why is it happening? I hired too early, I don't have enough people to catch the leads. Or, I am flush with leads, and I can't get to them because I refuse to hire an agent. That's generally what we're going to find. It's either one way or the other. So at this point, generally what you're going to have is you need bodies. You need help. Now you have to decide, is this agent help that I need, or do I need support and administrative help? If the sales are not pushing the business forward and you're not able to scale, then sales are probably going to be the direction that you want to go, because it's really, really hard to justify hiring somebody whenever your revenue is limited and you're paying a salary to somebody who's not generating income. It's hard to rationalize that. Now, if your issue is that you just need somebody to catch the phone, greet people, set appointments for people, and you can handle everything that's coming in, that's fine. But that'll really depend on how big your book of business is. So again, your admin will be a gatekeeper, warm-up service, and then appointment set for you. Now, what this could do is shut this, right? So now your leads at least aren't escaping, they're just piling up, which is way better than them going out of your funnel. However, you still have to get to the people who are up here in a timely manner. So once you close this up right here and you have plenty of leads, well, that's fine. Can you make all of those appointments? If you can't, you're going to have to hire somebody. Now, you can look at bringing people on as 1099. You don't have to bring them on as LOA or anything like that. However, if you want them to stay with you, there's a good chance you're going to need them on as LOA. It's a very, very good model if you were to make sure that you're giving them a little bit of something and then making sure that they're sharing in those renewals on the back end. That'll be up to you. That's a judgment call on your side. Do whatever you want to do there. Okay, so we have this funnel here. We're trying to figure out where the difficulty is. Where is my pain point? What do I need to fix? Is that a hiring problem? Do I have a leads problem, so I have to work on the marketing side? Am I not able to keep up with my data? I'm bleeding clients because I don't have good service. I can't keep information. Every time I talk to one of my clients, I'm having to say, what was it that you had again? You need to have that confidence every time you talk to them. There's any number of issues that you can have that can start to bottleneck and log jam right up right here. But again, the goal is to make sure that you're cutting out any escaping leads and then things are trickling down in. As more and more and more trickles in and you have more capital to operate with, this will become wider, right? Another big thing to really, really consider is that every single call that you're on, every single Medicare beneficiary that you help, make sure that you are remaining 100% compliant in that call. It has never been more important right now than to remain compliant in your calls. I cannot stress that enough. And if you're working with us and you need our help, and you need our help with the compliance side, we're more than happy to help you with that. Ask us what we have, ask us about our resources, and we can help to keep you compliant. But if you have low compliance and the carrier does happen to see it and they terminate a contract, then you're not selling anything at that point, all right? So make sure that you're compliant so that you can sell. Make sure that if you hire too early and you don't have enough leads, that you restructure and find either ways to repurpose that employee or to drive more lead flow in. If you have plenty of leads and enough time, and enough time to work them, but you don't have time to answer every single call or warm people up, get you an admin that can call out and can set appointments for you and can warm them up. You have to solve your lead problem and you have to solve your sales problem in order to scale past this point. There's a lot of pain here. Now, this is temporary. Generally, it takes about, we see about 6 months to get from this triangle into this bottleneck right here, and then eventually into this square. Now, the square is honestly very, very, very sustainable and where most agencies actually live, to be perfectly honest with you. These squares can, we can go from between, $80,000 to $90,000 a year up to $2 million a year inside of a square right here. It varies quite a bit as far as what you're bringing in, all right? So there's not really a limit to what you can do inside of this shape, but it's also the most long-term sustainable shape. And if you don't want to implement a ton of change over the course of time, you just want to keep things running and you want to keep things smoothly, a square is a great shape to be. All right, so let's talk about it for just a second. Well, what is the square? The square, number one, is boring. And the reason why it's boring is because not a whole lot is changing in the square. You're not growing at a super fast rate. You're not seeing that, that initial growth that you saw in the triangle and then moving out of the funnel. You're starting to level out and plateau. I compare it more to working out, where you see a lot of progress in those first few weeks, and then all of a sudden things start to plateau on you, and you want to quit. Same kind of concept in your business right here, where you don't necessarily want to quit, but you might get complacent in what's actually happening right here. The intensity has to remain right here, and you have to be willing to get into that boringness and make it exciting for yourself. This is where you're really starting to generate your interest, not just in writing Medicare plans, but in building a business that you desire to build. Again, whether that's $250,000 a year or $4 million a year. You have to decide what kind of intensity am I going to show to this. And your intensity is everything, especially as the leader of your organization. So, at 250 to 300 clients or so, you can really start to think about doing this. When you have that much renewal coming in, you can start to kind of structure this. Now, over here, I said hire too early or didn't hire at all. I'm talking about one employee. 2 employees, maybe up to 4, right? We're talking about a small group of people. We're not talking about a large business or a large corporation. It's still a small operation as of now, but it is in a much firmer shape than moving through an hourglass or moving through a triangle. So at 250 to 300 clients, you can consider starting to build this out. Generally, what we're seeing is if you have 1,000 clients, you're going to spend 40% of your time servicing that book. That means you got 60% of your time selling. Now, you notice right here that the owner, right, the same person who is at the top of the food chain over here on this triangle right here, the owner is now at the center of this square. And the owner is maintaining every side of this equal square and making sure that all sides are running well. You are intimately involved in your business at this point. You know processes, you know systems. If you're looking to hire people and you have the money to do that, great. Still understand 80 to 85% of the systems. Learn them. Become intimately involved with the business. This is where true scaling really, really begins in this state right here. So as the owner, I'm looking at the marketing, I'm looking at the operations, which includes your support team, compliance, I'm looking over the sales team, and I'm looking over the systems and the training. I'm handling all of those things. Lots of hats to wear whenever I got 40% of my time servicing and 60% of my time selling. All right? Now, whenever you grow that book to 2,500 or so, you're going to be spending maybe 20% of your time selling. It doesn't leave a whole lot of time for any training, building your marketing, building your operational SOPs, or doing any sales training with your agents. You're eventually going to have to spend more time working on the business, right? Now, you're still in it, and it's difficult sometimes whenever you're so close to it and you're inside of it to work on it. But the key to this is working yourself out of it, right? And in order to work yourself out of it, you are going to have to maintain all of these pieces until you can get the amount of pieces in place that you need. So, how do you maintain a square? And why is it so important to understand that you are going to be here for a while? You could be here for 5 to 15 years, depending on who you are, how aggressive you are, how great of a salesman, how great of a trainer. There are all kinds of factors that can move this 5 to 15 year stage right here. But honestly, you could be here for 15 years making very good money and be very happy. Have plenty of time for your family, have plenty of time for ball games. You don't have to do a ton of traveling. You're at home, right? You can still build that life inside of this square. And some people need that work-life balance in order to survive, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But whenever you start moving into the next shape that we talk about, the time kind of goes down, not because you don't have the time to do it, but because of another reason, which we'll get to in a second. So, consistency and discipline, not motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It's great for, early morning training and motivation and getting people in the right mindset and stuff like that. But the key to this is daily consistency and discipline, and that starts with training, making sure that your employees and you know how to use the systems, being your CRM, your enrollment platforms, whatever they are, and you are proficient in those systems, and all your processes, whether that's your support processes or your sales processes. All of these things need to be known cold. And it's up to you to make sure that you're training the agents to do that. I know it's a lot of responsibility, but you are building a business. If you want that business to be strong, all of these things are very, very important. So at this point, you start hiring an agent, or I hire 2 agents, and I'm able to keep those people fed. Because the thing is, I'm not spending a whole lot of time selling anymore. I'm seeing myself being slowly worked out of this business. A lot of you might be in this position right now, where you're trying to transition into the next shape. But as you're hiring these people in, remember, it is up to you as the leader to make sure that the training is there, the system usage is correct, and the processes are truly understood. Another really important factor of this square is that this foundation hasn't changed. It's the same foundation that was the sales line right here. It's the same foundation that was your triangle. It's the same foundation that was your hourglass. Same foundation. Rock solid foundation. That never changes. That is why it's so important to build this out of stone when you start. Because if you start building all of this on top of sand, it will fall quickly. Has to be strong. Now, as you hire agents, agents equal revenue if you're training, if the system usage is there, if the processes are there. You will start to see revenue enter. With revenue comes scaling opportunity, right? Now you have to be willing as the agent again to make sure that you are, well, I'm used to living this quality of life. I don't know if I want to give that much up. You have to make that decision when you start making the jump into the next shape. The next shape is a wheel or a circle. Notice there are no corners here. Everything is nice and smooth. Everything's running around. Very, very important, right? It's very important to look at the difference, right? If I got a square and my business is running well, and I'm running up my system side, when I make it to my marketing side, I might have to stop here for a second, but I'm okay with that because I know that when I make that turn down my marketing street right here, I know exactly where I'm going. And then when I get to my operation street, I know exactly where I'm going. And when I get to my sales street, I know exactly where I'm going. So you have a wheel of sorts, but it is not smoothly running in a circle. You're not able to just set it off running. You're still very responsible with making sure all of the pieces work. The wheel kind of rolls on its own. That's the whole concept here. So if I hop into here and I'll look at this wheel, you will see that I have, let me make a circle around this, actually. On the outside of this wheel, you have compliance, right? If you have a tire with no rim, it's a pretty useless thing. If you have a rim with no tire, it's a useless thing. You need both sides of this thing to work. So the wheel, what allows you to continue to sell is that you are compliant and that you keep your contracts and you keep good relationships with the carriers. That's important because without that, you have no wheel. You have nothing to roll. So that's super important. Now, inside of this compliance, and by the way, compliance is nothing to be terrified about. We're working with people constantly on the compliance side of things, and we have so many resources to help you. Again, to reiterate this, if you're hearing compliance and it's freaking you out, don't worry. We can help you with it. Now, once you have your compliance under control, then we're going to start moving inside of this wheel. So let's look at what we have here. We have our marketing that feeds our support. Our support team feeds the sales team. The sales team feeds the CRM. The CRM feeds me and Drew and Justin information, lets us know what we can return to the business, right? How much can I reinvest this? What's my return? Because I'm keeping good information. I'm keeping good notes. I know exactly what my return on ad spend is, so I know exactly what I can reinvest back into my company. Well, when I reinvest, what happens? The marketing hits again, the support hits again, the sales hit again, and the CRM hits again. And it just goes, and it goes, and it goes. What's interesting here, though, is the difference is where the owner was intimately involved in everything in this square. Well, look at where the owner is now. Owner's chilling on the outside of the wheel. Not because the owner is disconnected from the business, because now the owner isn't so close. He's not in the bullpen every day. He's not on the phones every day. He's not in that. What he is doing is listening to the business. What does the business need? While caring for the employees, which is very, very important, is to have good leadership that cares for the employees. But you also have to listen to the business and see what it's dictating of you. So this same owner, right, who started right here, was at the top of here, was trying to figure out exactly what the logjam was here, who was in the very center of all the operations here, is now all of a sudden on the outside of the business monitoring everything that's happening on the inside of this wheel. Inside of this wheel right here, you see I have the word chaos. And the reason I put that there is to let you know that there's no matter how dialed in you get processes, there's always going to be speed bumps that you're going to run into. But this chaos is controlled inside of this wheel right here. For me, for Jackson, for Jeremiah, right? We have people inside of this wheel who can handle this chaos, disperse the chaos so that the wheel can continue to roll. We don't want this chaos coming outside of the wheel. We don't want to blow out on the wheel. We want to be able to control what's happening inside of the wheel all the time. Justin is monitoring that from the outside. That's when you can start not working yourself out of the business, but really hyper-focusing in on working on it while not necessarily being completely embedded in it, if that makes sense. And this is where most agents and agency owners who get to this level, that's where they want to be. I want to stop selling in 3 years. I want to stop selling in 5 years. Perfect. You can absolutely do that. But if you do not have a wheel set up here, something that is self-sustaining, a group of people who work with you that you trust, that you've trained, who you know can do the work well. If you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to build a wheel because you are still involved in this wheel. You can't monitor it. So, as this chaos kind of disperses, this continues to roll, right? And as we're going down this line, right, going full circle, we're going back to the line, but this time, I don't have an arrow pointing back. I'm not looking backwards at this point. Over here, this straight line selling, I'm just trying to get them back on the line so I can write the med sup, or I'm just trying to get them back on the line so I can write the MA, or I'm just trying to get them back on the line so I can write the hip, or the cancer, or the dental, or the annuity, or the home health care, or whatever it is that you're trying to write. Nothing is more important in the beginning than this. It's absolutely true. This line then changes. And I consider it more like a road. Forgive my bad illustration, but what you have now is a vehicle. And that vehicle is now headed that way on the road. We don't have an arrow pointing back. You do have a rear view mirror to see all of your mistakes, but not to relive them or live in them. Very, very important that you don't do that. Now, does this mean that there's not going to be a speed bump right there in the road that you're going to have to overcome? Absolutely not. But the problem happens is when you see that speed bump and you turn it into a mountain that you can't get past. So remember, as you are scaling your businesses, there are times when there are limited problems that need to be solved. Maybe not every aspect of the business needs to be solved. There are just a few things that need to be solved for so that you can balloon these sides out. Because basically, look, all we have here is an inverted square. If you balloon these sides out, you wind up with a square right here. It's the same shape. You just got to figure out how to get rid of this bottleneck. You got to figure out how to keep your leads from escaping. If you can do that and get to this square, maintain, grow, scale in a healthy way, build that foundation not only so that you have a strong foundation on the surface, but that it's deep, very, very deep. You can build whatever you would like to on top of that, and then from there, build this wheel so that it is a self-sustaining business that grows without you having to be involved in absolutely everything that's going on. This is taking you from brand new street-level agent to high-level agency owner. And I know that this is a rudimentary way of saying it, but these shapes right here truly represent 90% of all journeys that I have seen in Medicare agencies. So, with the simplicity of this, right? Think about it for yourself. Introspect into your business. See where you are. Am I selling so that I can start an agency? Am I an agency? Okay, great. I want to scale. I want to get a little bit bigger. What are my issues? Before you start scaling, know that you're going to hit this bottleneck. Know that you need to solve for those. Once I hit here, how do I make this so that it is a well-oiled machine? Well, I train system usage, processes, and sales. Once I have that done and everyone in the business is doing what they need to do without me having to tell them, I can then build my wheel. And then I can watch my wheel roll and control that wheel and control the direction of it. So, if y'all have questions, or if you need any information at all about the marketing side, about the compliance side, about where you might be in this process, reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you. We're more than happy to talk to you and dive into this. Thank you so much for being with me. Y'all have a wonderful day.
I'm going to keep it rolling. I think this will be a great opportunity for you to throw out, come to a boot camp or behind the agency. So just
Gotcha.
pick up kind of like in an ending and throw out that they can find more information about those by reaching out to us.
Got you. So in closing, these shapes right here, these identify the shapes of your business. You have to figure out exactly where you are. Once you decide and figure out exactly where you are in this process, that's the point when you can start asking the questions. So if you have questions, if you need help with any of this, we're more than happy to help you with that. Honestly, we have events here in the office for new agents who are here, who need to understand the basic rudimentary sales training. We have that. We have behind the agency for people who are here, even people who are right here, who are wanting to make that wheel a little bit smoother. We have these events because we love to bring people in and we love to pour into people. We've seen so many people get so much value out of these. Please join us. If you have questions about it, let us know. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you.